In the still, tense air of a courtroom, the world sometimes holds its breath. Moments like these are rare moments where people who have committed some of the worst crimes in modern history come face to face with justice. The crimes they committed shocked nations. The pain they caused still echoes. But in those few seconds after the verdict is read, something happens that reveals far more than any trial ever could. Their reactions, whether proud, numb, furious, or eerily calm, offer a glimpse into what lies beneath. What does it mean to look true evil in the face and see it smile, scream, or stare silently? Let's begin with Charles Manson, a name that haunts history. He wasn't just a murderer, he was the conductor of chaos, orchestrating acts of terror without lifting a weapon himself. His cult, known as the Manson family, followed his every word with blind devotion. They murdered at his command, believing they were sparking a revolution. One of the most horrific moments came when Sharon Tate, a beloved Hollywood actress who was 8 months pregnant, was brutally killed along with her unborn child. During his trial in the 1970s, Manson transformed the courtroom into a disturbing theater of madness. He interrupted judges. He delivered strange monologues. He carved a symbol into his forehead, later changing it into a swastika. The world watched, horrified and captivated. When the sentence finally came, life in prison, Manson didn't flinch. He smiled. It wasn't a smile of regret or even of defiance. It was something more chilling. "I am freer here than you are out there," he said. His eyes gleamed with something almost supernatural. In that moment, it became clear that for Manson, prison wasn't a punishment, it was simply another stage from which he could spread his myth. Even behind bars, he retained a following drawing in curious minds, dark admirers, and those fascinated by his hold over people. Then there was Ted Bundy, the smiling stranger with a dark secret. To the public, Bundy was handsome, smart, and well-spoken. To his victims, he was death in disguise. During the 1970s, he killed at least 30 women, though the real number may never be known. He used his charm to disarm, to lure, and to destroy. His trial was among the first to be nationally televised, and Bundy used that attention to his advantage. As a former law student, he chose to represent himself, often questioning witnesses and addressing the court with eerie calmness. At times, he joked with reporters. He even received fan mail and love letters from admirers who refused to believe he was guilty. Bundy was not only defending himself legally, he was performing, shaping a character, presenting a version of himself that could pass as human, even admirable. But when the death sentence was announced, the mask cracked. The confident, smooth-talking Bundy faltered. His voice trembled. His face went pale. In one last attempt at manipulation, he gave a rambling speech in which he declared, "I'm the coldest man you'll ever meet." But there were no more illusions. The charm was gone. What remained was a killer exposed, stripped of his lies. The public saw in real time the collapse of a facade that had fooled many. In Norway, another kind of terror unfolded in 2011. Anders Breivik, a man with a calm voice and a cold heart, carried out one of the deadliest attacks the country had ever seen. He first set off a bomb that rocked the government quarter in Oslo. Then, dressed as a police officer, he traveled to the island of Utøya, where he opened fire on a youth camp. By the end of the day, 77 people were dead, most of them teenagers. What made Breivik so terrifying wasn't just the brutality, but the precision. He planned everything. He even wrote a lengthy manifesto filled with extremist ideology. During his trial, he sat emotionless, as if watching someone else's story unfold. Victims' names were read aloud. Families wept. He blinked, but little more. When the court sentenced him to 21 years, the maximum penalty under Norwegian law, he showed no sorrow. Instead, he raised his fist in a nationalist salute and said he would do it again. His response wasn't one of remorse. It was a declaration, a statement that his beliefs remained untouched. His reaction outraged the nation and stirred debate about the adequacy of Norway's legal system in dealing with crimes of this scale. Could 21 years truly reflect the weight of such suffering? Breivik's calm, controlled reaction exposed a larger issue: the terrifying strength of ideology when it overrides empathy. In the face of justice, he showed no regret, only pride. His courtroom behavior became part of his message. He saw himself as a martyr and the trial as his podium. Aileen Wuornos's story was a different kind of nightmare, one born not from ideology but from pain. Her life had been a cycle of abuse, abandonment, and survival. As a sex worker in Florida, she claimed she killed 7 men in self-defense, saying they had assaulted or threatened her. But the details were murky, the violence too severe. Her trial became a spectacle. Her face flashed across news broadcasts. She would yell one moment and sob the next. The courtroom didn't see a calm, calculated killer. It saw a woman unraveling. And when the judge announced the death penalty, Wuornos snapped. Her voice turned to fire as she screamed, "I hope you all burn in hell." There was no remorse, no plea for mercy, just rage. Her reaction wasn't rehearsed. It came from somewhere raw and buried deep. While her actions were horrifying, her life raised painful questions about how society handles trauma, mental illness, and survival on the margins. She was a product of violence long before she committed her own. Her story, unlike others, forces us to confront the failures of social systems that left her to fend for herself until it was too late. Then, from fire to ice, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. For decades, he ruled a criminal empire stretching across continents. As the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, he flooded countries with drugs and left a trail of bodies in his wake. He was known for his cunning escapes and his brutal enforcement. When he was finally captured and brought to trial in the United States, the world watched closely. El Chapo's trial was massive, dozens of witnesses, mountains of evidence, and yet he sat quietly, observing, calculating, never speaking more than necessary. And when the final verdict came, life in prison without parole, he didn't flinch. He didn't protest. He said absolutely nothing, just stared at the judge, calm as ever. It was silence, but it spoke volumes. Was it pride, denial, strategy? Experts suggest it was a final act of control, a refusal to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing him break. In his world, emotion was weakness. Silence was power. His reaction was a final chapter in a long story of fear and control. Each of these reactions reveals something different about the person, the crime, and the psychology behind it. Charles Manson grinned because he believed he was untouchable. Ted Bundy faltered because the game was finally over. Anders Breivik saw his sentence as a stage. Aileen Wuornos exploded because the system had never been on her side. And El Chapo remained silent because silence had always served him. Each one shows us that sentencing doesn't erase pain, it only marks a line in history. But together, these reactions ask bigger questions. Can justice truly be served when the guilty feel no guilt, when there are no apologies, no sorrow? These courtroom moments offer more than drama. They give us rare, unfiltered glimpses into what extreme detachment, narcissism, ideology, and trauma look like when confronted with punishment. They are moments where justice meets the unreachable, and society is left to reckon with what it cannot fix. History has always tried to understand evil through law, through psychology, through punishment. But these cases show us that justice doesn't always bring peace. Not for the victims, not for the families, and not for a world still trying to understand how such darkness ever came to be. It forces us to reflect not just on punishment, but on prevention, on compassion, on the cracks where monsters are made not born. So now we ask, which moment stayed with you? Was it the smile, the scream, the stare, that said nothing but meant everything? Share your thoughts. And stay with us as we continue to explore the places where the human mind turns darkest.